We left off when Evan was going to the town square to try and sell lemonade to get $53 to try and beat his sister. So let's continue and find out how he solves his problem. Evan surveyed the scene and picked his spot right in the center of all the green where all the paths met. Anyone walking across the green would have to pass his stand, and who could resist lemonade on such a hot day as this? But he wheeled his wagon off to the side, parking it halfway under a huge rhododendron. Then he crossed the street and walked into the Big Dipper. The frozen air felt good on his skin. It was like getting dunked in a vat of just melted ice cream. And the smells, a mix of vanilla, chocolate, coconut, caramel, and bubblegum. He looked at the tubs of ice cream, all in a row, carefully protected behind a pane of glass. The money in his pocket tingled. He had plenty left over after buying 5 cans of frozen lemonade mix with his earnings from yesterday. What would it hurt to buy just one cone? Or milkshake? Or maybe both? Can I help you? Asked the woman behind the counter. Yeah, said Evan. He stuck his hand in his pocket and felt all the money. Bills and coins ruffled between his fingers. Money was meant to be spent. Why not spend a little? Evan could just imagine how good the ice cream would feel sliding down his hot throat. Creamy, sweet, like cold, golden deliciousness. He let his mind float as he gazed at the swirly buckets of ice cream. The sound of laughter brought him back to the earth in a hurry. He looked around. It was just some girls he didn't know at the water fountain, but it had sounded like Megan majority. Can you please tell me how much a glass of lemonade costs? $3, said the woman. Really? Said Evan. That much? How big's the cup? The woman pulled a plastic cup off a stack and held it up. It wasn't much bigger than the 8-ounce cups Evan had in his wagon. Wow, $3. That's a lot, said Evan. Well, thanks anyway. He started to walk to the door. Hey, said the woman, pointing to the ice cream case. I'm allowed to give you a taste for free. Really? Said Evan. Then, could I taste a strawberry slam? The woman handed him a tiny plastic spoon with 3 licks worth of pink ice cream on it. Evan swallowed it all in one gulp. Ah. Back outside, he got to work. He filled his pitchers with water from the drinking fountain. Then he stirred in the mix. Then he pulled out a big blue marker and wrote on a piece of paper $2 per cup, best price in town. He'd barely finished setting up when the customers started lining up, and they didn't stop. For a full hour, he poured lemonade. The world is a thirsty place, he thought as he nearly emptied his fourth pitcher of the day. I am the lemonade king. Later, Evan would think of something his grandma said. Pride goeth before a fall. When Evan looked up, there was Officer Ken. His hands were on his hips, looking down at him. Evan gulped. He stared at the large, holstered gun strapped to Officer Ken's belt. Hello, said Officer Ken, not smiling. Hi, said Evan. Officer Ken did a bike rodeo every year at Evan's school. He was also the cop who had shown up last fall when there was a hurt goose on the recess field. Officer Ken was always smiling. Why isn't he smiling now? Evan wondered. Do you have a permit? Asked Officer Ken. He had a very deep voice, even when he talked quietly like he did now. You mean like a bike permit? That's what the rodeo was all about. If they passed the rodeo, the third graders got their bike permits, which meant they were allowed to ride to school. No, I mean a permit to sell food and beverages in a public space. You need to get a permit from the town hall and pay a fee for the privilege. Pay the town hall to run a lemonade stand? Was he kidding? Evan looked at Officer Ken's face. He didn't look like he was kidding. I didn't know I needed one, said Evan. Sorry, friend, said Officer Ken. I'm going to have to shut you down. It's the law. But But there are lemonade stands all over town, said Evan. He thought of Jesse and Megan's lemonade stand. When he wheeled by with his wagon more than an hour ago, their stand had looked like a beehive with small kids crowding around. He had read a sign over their stand: free face painting, nail polishing, hair braiding. What a gimmick. But it sure looked like it was working. Said Evan, there's a stand on Damien Road right now. You should go bust them. Officer Ken smiled. We tend to look the other way when it's in a residential neighborhood, but right here on the town green, we have to enforce the law. Otherwise, we'd have someone selling something every 2 feet. But there had to be some way to convince Officer Ken. How could Evan make him understand? You see, I've got this little sister, and we've got a competition going to see who can sell the most lemonade. And I've got to win because she's. He couldn't explain the rest about fourth grade and how embarrassed he was to be in the same class as his kid sister and how it made him feel like a great big loser. Evan looked up at Officer Ken. Officer Ken looked down at Evan. It was like Officer Ken was wearing a mask, a no smiling, I'm not your buddy mask. Then Officer Ken shook his head and smiled. The mask fell off. I've got a little sister too, he said. Love her to death now. But when we were kids, Officer Ken sucked in his breath and shook his head again. Whew! Then the mask came back, and Officer Ken looked right at Evan for 10 very stern seconds. Tell you what, said Officer Ken, I do have to shut you down. The law's a law. But before I do, I'll buy one last glass of lemonade. How's that sound? Evan's face fell. Sure, he said without enthusiasm. He poured an extra tall cup and gave it to the policeman. Officer Ken reached into his pocket and handed Evan a $5 bill. Keep the change, he said. A contribution to the Big Brother Fund. Now clean up your things and don't leave any litter behind. He lifted his cup and a toast and he walked away. Evan watched him go. Wow, he thought. I just sold the most expensive cup of lemonade in town. Evan stared at the $5 bill in his hands. It was funny. 2 days ago, he would have felt as rich as a king to have that money in his hands. It was enough to buy 2 slices of pizza and a soda with his friends. It was enough to rent a video and have a late night at someone's house. It was enough to buy a whole bag full of his favorite candy mix at CVS. 2 days ago, he would have been jumping for joy. Now he looked at the $5 and thought it's nothing compared to the $100 he needed to win the war. $5 was nothing. He felt somehow that he'd been robbed of something, maybe the happiness he should have been feeling. He loaded everything from his stand into the wagon, making sure he didn't leave a scrap of litter behind. He still had a glass full of lemonade left in one pitcher, not to mention another whole pitcher already mixed up and unsold. So he poured himself a full cup. Then, before beginning the long, hot haul back to his house, he found an empty spot on a shaded bench and he pulled his earnings out of his pocket. He counted once. He counted twice, very slowly. He made $65. The cups and lemonade mix had cost him $9, When he added in his earnings from Wednesday and Thursday, he had $103.11. Now that's enough, he thought. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and stop here for this book. Remember to refer back to this book when we are going over things and when you're doing your work in Schoology. I will see you soon.